Video is on, and if you could turn on your microphones. The video.
It's Monday, July 30th, 2018. It is 6 p.m. We're calling a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Babcock. Trustee Broadhead.
Here.
Trustee Harris.
Here.
Trustee Hatch.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Palazuski.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem, today is Tuesday, July 30th, 2018, and you do have a quorum.
Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a motion to approve the bills list.
I move that we approve the bills list.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Hatch.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead.
Abstain, Will County.
Mayor Pro Tem Palazuski.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. This is a portion of the meeting where the public may comment upon or ask questions about topics not on the agenda. The public will be recognized and allowed to speak about issues listed on the agenda during the time that they are discussed by the board, subject, however, to reasonable time limits and decorum. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the benefit of the audience and for public record when we begin to speak. Since no one's held the podium, we will go on to the item on the agenda.
Is it somebody's thing is too close, or what's, do we know what's going on?
I want to turn them down.
Turn them down.
I turned mine down a little already.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Struck. Are there any changes for the agenda? Since there are no changes to the agenda, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next item on the agenda is our informational items, which are Chief of Police presentation by our Interim Chief Brian Kasana.
Thank you. Honored board members, Mayor Pro Tem, and citizens for the town of Mead, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. I want to talk about the future of the Mead Police Department, but first I'd like to offer some insights into the past and the present health of that police department. Now, 2 months ago, I was asked to serve as interim chief of police and guide this organization through some turmoil that they were experiencing. Little did I know how turbulent things were, and they quickly became worse when 2 out of 3 officers elected to resign for their own personal reasons. Presently, we have 1 officer with another starting this Wednesday, and potentially 2 to 3 more starting within the next month. So things are quickly improving for the police department. Now, as a town, you have also installed functioning evidence lockers, and you'll soon see Mead police patrol vehicles in the community that are new, and there's a new graphic and design logo on them. There's also a strong policy manual being put into place which will protect the town, the residents, and also the officers more than ever. You will also see a slightly different uniformed and equipped officer, which provides them with a more professional and approachable look. And these things and others that we're currently working on in the police department is stuff that you should all be very proud of. For me, I am very proud to serve you in this town. These past 2 months have been some of the hardest and most challenging of my career, but at the same time extremely rewarding, especially now that I'm starting to see this department move in the right direction. Moving this organization forward is something which is exciting to me personally, and it's my sincere hope that this community can take pride in their police department and not see their police department as a burden. Moving forward is what I would like to focus on tonight, and yes, we can and we should reflect on the past, because this is how we can learn and plan for a better future, but we should always be looking to move forward. Now, I've met some very wonderful people in my time here, and I've heard some very candid comments about the police department, and a couple of those I'd like to share with you tonight because it's related to the 1% sales tax increase. Some of those comments are, we do not need a police department. The Weld County Sheriff's Office is just fine. There is no need to increase the size of the police department. I don't want an officer on every street corner. This is a safe community. We do not need more officers. And Gilchrist Police Department failed and they were taken over by Platteville. How do we know that this will not happen to the Mead Police Department? So as you can see, these are all very great questions that have been asked of me. And what I would say is that these are the types of questions that every resident in this community should be asking, because it allows for us as a town and as a police department to provide answers to these questions, and also a level of transparency that the community probably needs and wants. Through that transparency, we can reassure the community that the police department is going to move forward and be successful, and that we're also good stewards of the public's money. I think when I'm done tonight, I will have answered all these concerns and, more importantly, provided a compelling argument as to why the sales tax increase is needed. Now, I wanted to have a staff member from the Weld County Sheriff's Office present with me tonight to explain why there is a need to have a Mead Police Department, but unfortunately this did not work out. What I can tell you is that having Weld County Sheriff's Office provide policing services to the town of Mead is not an option. The county commissioners directed all of the small municipalities to begin providing police services to their own communities. So the town of Mead is not alone on meeting this task that was given to us by the Weld County Commissioners. You have Garden City, Severance, and even Gilchrist, as I mentioned before, are some of those that are impacted by that decision. Now, currently the town of Mead does contract through the Sheriff's Office for what we call indirect services, meaning they only respond to in-progress emergency types of calls. And I would submit to you that this model we're currently under is not a sustainable model. Reason being is that we currently pay the Weld County Sheriff's Office an hourly rate of $62.19 for the services they provide to the town. If you extrapolate that out, it equals approximately a yearly salary of over $129,000. Now, this by far exceeds the annual salary that the town of Mead currently pays for an entry-level police officer. Now, the Sheriff's Office also covers over 4,000 square miles, and because there's no assigned deputy to the town of Mead, it's not inconceivable that the response time of a deputy coming here for that emergent in-progress call could be 20 to 30 minutes to no fault of their own. That's a long time to wait for a deputy to show up when it's your loved one calling the police and needing assistance. Also, due to there not being an assigned deputy to the town of Mead, there's no proactive patrolling that's being done in the community when that lone patrol officer we currently have is not on duty. The old saying of when the cat's away, the mice will play couldn't be truer than with the town of Mead right now. A real-world example of this occurred 2 weeks ago when about 10 vehicles were broken into in the Western Meadows subdivision. That occurred between midnight and 5 a.m., and this is when we currently do not staff that lone Mead police officer on duty. Now, when I first came to this town, I asked, well, what does the community want and what does the community need as far as their police department? Do they want a part-time police department that was currently ongoing, or do they want to have a full-time, 24/7, very professionally run police department? Now, the response I got unequivocally from the majority of people I talked to is that they want that full-time, 24/7 operation. Based on that response, I provided some initial staffing requirements that would allow us to effectively become a 24/7 operation. Now, this was done very early on into my time here, and since then, I've had the opportunity to review call volume and, more importantly, crime statistics that are reported to the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, and I'm here to tell you that my initial assessment, I was wrong on that. I was wrong because I underestimated the initial numbers of officers needed, and I should have asked for more. I believe you've all seen this chart that I have created and was provided to you, and all that data was pulled directly from the CBI website, and it is the most up-to-date current crime information, which is based on 2016. I also used a website called City Data to pull all the information from as far as the population and community numbers, and that was done in order to maintain consistency when I put this study together. There's a lot of numbers on that page, but I really want to draw your attention to are just a couple that, in my opinion, are very telling. You know, Mead right now has the highest number of residents per officer at 1,473 residents per every officer in the town, and this is based on the 3 officers that we used to have. Now, this distinction is important because to provide a little perspective of that number, is Dacono has 1 officer per every 454 residents, and again, that'll come into play later on. Now, the town of Mead does not have the highest overall volume of criminal activity. This would be shared between Johnstown and also Firestone. What I would submit to you is that these numbers should not be shocking to you because both those communities also have the highest population in the area. And generally, when you have an increase in population, you also see an increase in criminal activity. In my opinion, it's a better measurement of crime in the community when you look at per capita crime. Now, per capita crime takes into account the population, whereas the overall volume of crime does not. When looking at the per capita crime rate, the town of Mead has the highest level of per capita crime and also the highest arrest rate of any of those comparable agencies I provided to you. Now, something that's worth mentioning is that per capita does not care about the number of officers that a department has, as this is not used in that equation. So what that means is that it's based only on population. So if the town of Mead, for example, has 3 officers, which is what I did my calculations on, or 30 officers, the per capita crime rate would not change at all. Now, these are very sobering numbers, and it's exactly why the town of Mead needs their own 24/7 police department with the adequate staffing and resources to make an impact on that per capita crime rate. Now, although I just told you that per capita crime rate will not be impacted by the numbers of officers Mead had, this is not entirely true. What I mean by that is that by having your own 24/7 police department proactively patrolling in your community, incidents like those from Western Meadows may be prevented, thus having an indirect impact on reported crime, thus reducing the per capita crime rates in the community. Now, as this community continues to grow, as the communities around us continue to grow, the criminal element is going to seek out the path of least resistance, and right now that is the town of Mead. We are the unlocked chicken coop, just testing fate with the criminals that are out there. Now, I know I've painted a very negative doom and gloom picture, which is not normally who I am. I'm typically a very optimistic person, and I try to look at the positives versus the negative. I'm the, how do you call it, the glass is always half full type of a guy. And so I want to kind of leave you with some positive thoughts. And if you recall several minutes ago, I mentioned about how Dacono has a ratio of 1 officer per every 454 residents, which is a very good ratio, I might add. If you look at the per capita crime rates, they also have the lowest per capita crime rate. The argument can be made that this is due to them having the adequate staffing and resources needed to perform policing in a professional manner. Now, I'm asking all of you to have a sense of urgency, which is not needed only on placing the sales tax increase on the ballot, but in also speaking to your constituencies and passing on to them just how important this is. In order to allow for the Mead Police Department to succeed, they need support from staff and, more importantly, the entire community. I can't speak to you tonight about why the Gilchrist Police Department failed. I've never worked for that organization, and so I can't speak to that. But what I can say is that the little bit of research I was able to do and in the articles I was able to find in the papers, Gilchrist failed, in my opinion, because it didn't have support from their community, and they didn't have their support from the elected officials. The Mead Police Department is asking for your support. The Mead Police Department is currently having a very solid foundation being built, and what we need now is the community to rally around us, support us in bringing those walls together. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you so much. And the next person on the agenda for sales and use tax presentation is Mrs. Rademacher.
So the handout that you have at your desk there in front of you is what I'll be referring to throughout my presentation. So I'll just tell you which page I'm on, et cetera, as I go along. So let me first start with a little bit of background of how we got to where we are right now. Last spring, the board expressed an interest to reserve a place on the November ballot for a proposed 1% sales and use tax increase to improve public safety. The two main areas of public safety which need to be addressed are the newly formed police department, as you just heard, and the condition of the town's roads. In order to participate in the November 6th, 2018 coordinated general election, it is necessary to certify the ballot language to the Weld County Clerk and Recorder by Friday, September 7th, 2018. To meet that deadline, staff will have ballot language to present to you at the August 13th, 2018 regular board meeting. A little bit of background. Staff has always presented a budget that is balanced, and we've presented a forecasted 5-year budget. However, it does not adequately fund all of the town's needs. In particular, the budgets for upgrading and maintaining the road system and building the police department are significantly underfunded. Some funding, mainly for the roads, could be covered by development impact fees if we can achieve a reasonable rate of growth. But development impact fees will not address all of the needs. The first step, we decided that if we wanted to pursue a sales tax increase, was to gauge public support. Successful ballot initiatives required us to, as staff, to gauge the support of the public. The first step was to prepare a survey for the residents. So you will see this is the survey that staff prepared that was available on our website. Go ahead and leave that one up, Mary. Yeah, still there. Nope, sorry. This is the survey that we had available here at the town hall, and it was also available on our website online. The survey sought to, number one, educate the respondents as to the need for the increase, explain the town's main sources of revenue, educate the respondents on how Mead compares to other local taxing entities, explain how any additional revenues would be used, gauge the respondents' support for public safety needs, and to gauge the respondents' support for a 1% sales and use tax increase. From July 9th until today is the closing date for the survey, town residents were invited to participate in this survey. Now, if you look at the handout, the page that says summary, and again, all of this information was online. The first thing we tried to do was educate the town on what our sources of revenue were. And so staff created the graph that you see. It's in the packet that's off to my side here, about where our revenues are derived. The two primary sources of revenue for the town are property and sales tax. The town's sales tax is lower than most of our neighboring communities, and the collective sales tax rate is much lower than most along the Front Range because Weld County does not have a sales tax. So the comparative sales tax information is also included in that packet, which shows Mead currently at 2%, which is lower than any of our surrounding communities. So again, the survey was available on the town's website and at the town hall. And as of today, July the 30th, we have received 189 responses. Now we can change the chart. You can see we've summarized the results in this handout here. And that is what the survey results are on the poster board. Based upon the results that we received from the 189 respondents, one could assume that the respondents agree that public safety and well-maintained safe roads are important. The results of the survey will be made online, available online on the town's website and at the town hall. Preliminary results at this point show that a slight majority of respondents would support a 1% sales tax increase, sales and use tax, if used for public safety. The town has also held the town staff and the town held a community open house last Wednesday, July the 25th, here at the town hall. Staff presented information on road conditions and the improvements identified, along with funding sources for roads, an overview of the police department, including recent crime statistics, and financial aspects of the town, including sources of revenues. About 15 people attended the event. Staff will also be present at this week's concert in the park to answer questions. The Chief of Police is presenting at the senior lunch this Thursday. A flyer will also be included in this month's sewer bills, and future opportunities are being explored. However, staff and the board will need to be educated on the do's and don'ts surrounding an election of this sort. And the town attorney will present to the board tonight, staff information concerning the Fair Campaign Practices Act following my presentation. As far as financial considerations, recent successful town and city ballot initiatives restrict on how the funds can be used. The theory is that voters are more willing to approve increases when they know how the funds will be used. However, in some cases, these restrictions have made it very difficult for municipalities to respond to changing needs, economic downturns, and emergencies. If restrictions are applied, they should be broad enough not to hamstring responsible financial management over time. One of the important things to take away if a 1% increase is achieved in the sales and use tax is that it would free up the general fund to address other operating costs rather than having a large chunk of the general fund going towards road improvements and police. So that would be relieving the general fund of those obligations. Based on the staff prepared some numbers of sales and use tax collections. It's the last page of your handout. And based on historical averages, we went back 8 years to 2008 and looked at all the various sales and use tax and building use tax sources. Based on that, we came up with what we think would be achievable based on a 3-year, a 5-year, and a 10-year average. Now, we believe these averages will be low. So if we do go forward with the ballot question, we are recommending that it's saying a 3-year average is about $900,000 would be collected. We do anticipate higher use tax, especially in 2019 as development increases and improves. And so the ballot language we're proposing would say about 1.3 million could be forecast to be collected in 2019, mostly from an increase in the building use tax piece. So with that, I'll turn it over to the town attorney if he would like to address the Fair Campaign Practices Act and help educate us a little more on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Radmacher.
Thank you.
Denise. What I will do is I have prepared a memorandum for you tonight, and I'll go ahead and pass this out to all of you. Now, I know that I'm passing this memorandum out tonight. Don't feel like you need to read it word for word right now. It is my intent to follow up tomorrow with an email to all of you as well, including a copy of this memorandum. And you will note that it's marked as confidential, privileged attorney-client communication, so I'm not going to go into excruciating detail, but it is important, especially for those of you that are new on the board, that you realize that the Fair Campaign Practices Act, which is a law here in Colorado, does restrict the use of public funds to advocate or to try to advance or have a question passed. And the FCPA restrictions are triggered once you make a decision to place the issue on the ballot. And that hasn't been done yet. And I think you heard Denise say that right now staff intending to bring the proposed ballot language to you on August 13th. So if you make a decision at your next meeting on August 13th to put that ballot question on the November 6th, 2018 ballot, then these restrictions that the FCPA or the Fair Campaign Practices Act contain would be triggered by that act of referring that question to the voters on August 13th. Now, even though you're restricted in using any public funds to urge a yes vote or a no vote, there are certain things that you are allowed to do as elected officials of the town. And we can go through those here quickly. You'll see at the bottom of page 2, there is a list of certain permitted activities. So for example, even after August 13th, you are allowed to distribute a factual summary. And by factual summary, that means it has to be, it has to include both arguments for and arguments against the proposal. And it has to be fair and balanced. You are allowed to take a position as the board. So for example, if you wanted to, at the second meeting in August or at a meeting in September, if you wanted to adopt a resolution of the board urging voters of the town to support the proposed 1% sales and use tax increase, that would be allowed under the FCPA. You are also allowed to dispense that resolution through normal customary means. So for example, Mary, as your town clerk, normally puts all resolutions that are adopted by the board on the town's website. That would be allowed in this instance. You are also allowed to express personal opinions. So if a member of the town were to approach you at a cafe or on the street and ask you about your opinion on the proposed sales and use tax increase, you are allowed to express your personal opinion. What you are not allowed to do is to spend town money. You can't ask town staff to prepare a letter on your behalf and mail that out using town funds. And this does go into a little bit more detail, but I wanted at least to get this in your hands now so that you can start to understand what state law restrictions will come into play if and when you make the decision to place this issue on the ballot. And like I mentioned, this is just an overview tonight, and I will follow up with an email tomorrow to all of you, attaching a copy of this memorandum as well. But if you have any questions at this point, I'm happy to address those questions.
I have a quick one. If we were to adopt a resolution, and it was on our website, would we be able to put it on the front page where we have current news, or would it have to go where all the resolutions are?
I would advise you to treat this resolution like you would any normal resolution, and not draw any more attention to it than you would a normal resolution, because I think that could be viewed as the staff time involved in making that happen could be viewed as using town funds to highlight the resolution. Now, to the extent that recent resolutions adopted by the board appear in a town newsletter, that would be okay, as long as you're not treating this resolution any different than normal resolutions.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. McCasson. Next item.
If I may address the board?
Yes, please please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mead Town trustees, fellow Mead residents. My name is Kenneth Chavez, and I live at 106 Hunters Cove Road. My question is directed toward Interim Chief Cousineau. Interim Chief, my understanding is that you have over 20 years of experience working for a municipality in the Denver metropolitan area. So my question is such: based upon your professional law enforcement experience, could you please highlight to the board and fellow Mead residents what you think the outcome would be if the sales tax resolution passes, as well as if it does not, for education of everyone involved?
Mrs. Mickelbrink, would that be something for us to put out on our website where we have all the questions that people have been asking about taxes and have it answered out there for the public to see and read?
It would be appropriate to have a written response that we could put out there.
So we will do that. It will be out on our web page. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very good one. Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is new business resolution 67R 2018, approving a letter agreement with Leader Edge Consulting Incorporated, and Mrs. Mickelbrink will discuss this resolution.
Yes, as you know, we've been talking about having a retreat for some time. I did do some research and got very, very favorable response for this individual. He is available this Saturday for our retreat. He's proposing to do 3 separate sessions with the board. This one will focus on team building and more of a deep dive into the sales tax and the needs of the town. In September, we are going to get together again to do a real deep dive into the budget so that we're sure that the board has all of your priorities are being met by how we're proposing the budget. Later today, you'll see we have the budget calendar. And then we want to do a 3rd session when our new mayor comes on board in January to do some strategic planning. And this is where this gentleman really shines, is on developing a really good strategic plan. He assures me we can do it in 1 page, so we can all remember it, put it up on the wall, and implement it. So with that, I would ask that you pass this proposal.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Mickelbrink? May I have a motion to accept resolution number 67R 2018 for an amount not to exceed $6,395?
Is it too late to talk about the expenditure?
For this?
Yes.
No, you can, I asked if there were any
Yeah,
questions. Yes.
I was trying to formulate whether or not I wanted to ask a question or not. So, Helen, can you tell me, on that breakdown, that is to cover what period of time? You said it's 3 sessions, is it single days? What is that amount covering?
It's
besides what you covered?
Yeah, it's 3 single-day sessions.
3 single-day sessions?
Yes. And we do have it budgeted in our professional services. We actually have some money that we're going to have left over in professional services to cover this. So it is a budgeted item.
Okay, it just seemed that, I was kind of shocked at the price, it just seemed a little expensive to me.
I got a price from another fellow about 6 months ago, and it was about $11,000. So actually, this is a little more in line.
Okay.
And plus, we will get, I think in the minutes, it was talking about we would get detailed information after each meeting, a review of it, so we'd have it to, bring to the next meeting and keep it fresh in your mind. So, I think it's a greatly needed, and thank you for setting that up, Helen. May I have a motion for?
I move that we approve resolution 67R-2018, a resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, approving a letter of agreement with Lenders Edge Consulting.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
The roll call, please.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead.
Yes.
Trustee Hatch.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pelzewski.
Yes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Mr. McCaskill will handle its ordinance 873.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Ordinance 873 approves a new franchise agreement with Black Hills Gas Distribution LLC, DBA Black Hills Energy, formerly known as Source Gas Distribution LLC. Source Gas was operating by assignment of the prior gas franchise agreement from Kinder Morgan. And the Kinder Morgan franchise agreement is currently codified in Article 4 of Chapter 5 of the Mead Municipal Code. And that existing franchise agreement was set to expire on March 29th, 2017. By prior ordinances that have been reviewed and approved by the board, the term of that existing franchise was extended through September 30th of 2018, and town staff did request the extension in order to have additional time to negotiate the terms of a new franchise with Black Hills Energy. Carly West from Black Hills Energy is here and may have a short presentation for the board on the request. I do want to point out that typically, as you know, most ordinances that are considered and approved by this board are done with one reading. Colorado state law does require that ordinances be approved strictly in accordance with Article 32 of Title 31, Colorado Revised Statutes, which does require 2 hearings. So the action tonight is not to approve the franchise agreement and approve the ordinance, but it's to approve it on first reading, which is something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for you, and you will be setting the second reading of the ordinance for your second meeting in August, which is August 27th, 2018. That will permit the applicant, or Black Hills Energy, to make the detailed publication, to satisfy the publication requirements of that statutory section and make sure that there's adequate public notice to all town residents about this application and the proposed approval of the franchise agreement. Town staff has reviewed the terms of the franchise agreement. We are satisfied with the terms of those agreement, and Black Hills Energy has also approved the terms of the franchise agreement. So tonight, again, you're being asked to approve this on first reading, setting the second reading for August 27th. And at this point, I'd ask Ms. West to approach, and if she has a presentation, great. If not, you know, I'm more than happy to answer any particular questions you may have.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Carly West. I manage community affairs for Black Hills Energy. I'm based out of our Denver office, and as part of my role as managing community affairs, I work on our franchise agreements and work with towns and other municipalities to approve those. I don't have much of a presentation tonight. I just appreciate the work that Helen and Marcus and others did on negotiating the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and we look forward to continuing to serve the town of Mead.
I do have a question about the actual service area.
Sure. So unfortunately, I'm not able to answer that in great detail. All along the Front Range corridor, we tend to serve primarily on the eastern side of the towns in this area. So the best guess that I could venture would be that our territory is on the eastern side of town. But unfortunately, my colleague Mark Arnold, who is the local supervisor and would be able to answer that in great detail, was not able to make it, but I'm happy to send our GIS map for your review.
Thank you.
If you would, that would be great. Are there any other questions?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could make a statement, I would just like to commend Carly and her staff. We've been working on this for quite some time, and as you know, we changed town attorneys, so we had a little bit of hiccup, and that's why this has been kicked down the road somewhat since the March 29th expiration. But we worked really hard to make sure that we had the town's interests at heart. And in the meanwhile, I don't think we did any harm to them as well. So I think it was a real partnership. And I'm really proud that we've got this put together because I think it's really important for the town. It also sets a prototype for the way we do our franchise agreements in the way what they agreed to. So I hope you pass it.
Thank you very much. Yes, I could tell from earlier that there was a lot of effort and scrambling to get it done. I appreciate all your efforts on that as well.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to pass the first reading of ordinance 873?
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance number 873, an ordinance of the town of Mead, Colorado, approving a non-exclusive franchise agreement with Black Hills Gas Distribution to allow to use the town streets for provisions of natural gas utility service to the town and its residents.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Mrs. Strutt in reference to resolution number 68R 2018.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Board of Trustees. As you're aware, we have a vacancy in the office of mayor, which you opted to hold a special election for, and we're coordinating that election with Weld County. Weld County has an intergovernmental agreement to coordinate that election. It's standard documentation from Weld County, where they set out what they have to do and what I have to do, basically. So it's pretty standard. Basically, I'll process the nomination petitions and the candidates here. So I'll process nomination petitions, fair campaign practices, paperwork, but they'll handle the actual election. We'll get the ballot language to them. There's a set date when that's due. They'll handle the election, printing the ballots, mailing out the ballots, and hiring the election judges and counting those ballots. Weld County will do that and just send us the results. So we're asking that you approve the IGA with Weld County so we can move forward with it.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number 68R 2018?
I move that we approve resolution number 68R 2018, a resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, approving the intergovernmental agreement between Weld County Clerk and Recorder and the town of Mead regarding conduct of the coordinated election held October 2018.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, Mrs. Rasmussen is going to discuss resolution number 69R 2018.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. This item is for an amendment to our existing pavement marking contract relative to our annual chip seal project. This amendment addresses the thermoplastic markings, which are actually the turn arrows, the only symbols, and the stop bars, which are not done with typical paint. This is a application that's they're made of plastic and they're melted onto the street. These were inadvertently left out of the original contract scope, and so we're proposing this amendment to that original contract for $6,120, which brings the total contract to $20,845, which is well within our $35,000 budget for striping. So staff is recommending approval of this amendment for $6,120.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Do we have any other projected plans for the use of that money for other roads or things that have not yet come to the board?
We do. I haven't identified an actual list of those locations, and so I do expect to spend the full $35,000, but I haven't identified it precisely where those are going to go. These markings are on the chip seal segments that we already completed, so south of 66 and on County Road 28.
Put them on those, right, okay. I'm just trying to see where we were at from that projection as to if we're gonna stay in budget with the other, things that you may have coming before us, just to make sure that we don't go over.
Right. Yeah, whatever I project for this fall will be within that 35,000.
Okay.
Thank you. And also, they did a great job on the road down there. It was so quick and easy and fast. It looks
Yeah, it looks
nice.
nice. Thank
Looks really nice. Are there any other questions? May I have a motion for Resolution 69R 2018?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 69R 2018 for the town of Mead, approving the amendment to service agreement for Fine Lines Pavement Marking LLC.
Second.
And not to exceed 6,000?
Not to exceed 6,000, yes, thank you.
Is the second?
Wait, it has to be $6,120.
$6,120.
$6,120.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call?
Trustee Broadhead.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Hatch.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pelzewski.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Mrs. Torres, resolution number 70R 2018.
So you have before you the resolution to hire a new yoga instructor. Our yoga instructors and other fitness instructors are contract employees, so they are not internal employees of the town of Mead. So they provide all of their own workers' comp insurance and stuff like that. It's an easier way for us to be able to afford to have extra programming. So this contract just allows us to have a contract with the new instructor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Torres?
Is this an additional instructor, or are we replacing an
We're
instructor that
replacing
left?
one.
Okay.
The instructor that was here moved to Wellington, and she was driving, but feels like the drive is just a little far, and then with the weather in the winter, may not be able to commit to coming as much, so.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Torres. Can I have a motion to accept resolution number 70R 2018?
I move that we pass resolution 70R 2018, authorizing Mayor Pro Tem Joyce Pelzewski to sign the yoga class instruction agreement with Catherine Kaufman.
Can I
I'll
have-
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Kennedy addressing resolution number 71R 2018.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. You have before you a request from the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee to formally name the town's property out at Highland Lake. They would like to name it Lauren Mead Park at Highland Lake in honor of the gentleman who founded the community out there. And as a result, staff would like to recommend that the board adopt Resolution 71R 2018. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Kennedy?
I feel like we're meeting at Sports Authority Field at Mile High. Like, Mile High will never go away. It's like, it's always gonna be Highland Lake. We're just adding a little bit to the front.
Okay. May I have a motion to accept resolution number 71R 2018?
I move that we adopt resolution 71R 2018, naming the open space park, the Lauren Mead Park at Highland Lake. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A motion carries. Thank you. I know that was an item they wanted fixed about a month ago in that meeting, so I appreciate you getting that handled for us.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item on the agenda is Planning Director, Mr. Kennedy, for his reports.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You have a copy of my report. A couple of quick highlights. First, I'd like to introduce our new planner, happily so. Jeremiah Fettig is his name. He's originally from Minnesota. He did his undergraduate work there at Minnesota State University at Mankato. He did his graduate work, went on to do his graduate work in urban regional planning at the University of Iowa. He was also married recently, back in March here in Colorado, and decided that they wanted to live here. And so we're very, very happy to have him. He's doing a great job so far. So thanks, Jeremiah, for coming to work with us.
Thank you. Welcome.
Also, a quick update on the Ames Park and Highland Lake planning process. We're fortunate enough to have 9 proposals from highly qualified firms. We were able to whittle that down, that list down to about 3, and so we're going to interview those folks next week. So the hope is to have our top choice to you with the contract and a proposal, and you'll be able to meet them later on this month. With that, happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item on the agenda is Recreation Coordinator, Mrs. Torres.
You have your report for the month of July. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are you doing flyers at the school for fall volleyball and fall soccer? Like, is that
We will
standard?
send them out through the school, but that, they get them 3 days before the registration closes, just with how school starts and how the
Yeah.
volleyball and soccer seasons have to start. It makes it difficult.
I know, it's always a struggle to get that.
I try and
to get
post a lot of stuff on the
registrations.
Mead Mustang, or the
Mead.
Marvelous Mead Parent
Uh-huh.
Facebook
I know which
page,
one you're talking about. Uh-huh.
and then hope that word of mouth gets around. And we do try and put stuff out, because we'll put stuff out about Community Day coming up on that as well. It's just that when school starts, that window is,
I know,
it's a
it's
tight
always
window
such a
to get it done.
struggle.
Plus, parents are so inundated with so much paper that's coming
Mhm.
home anyways. It's just one more sheet of paper that they're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have to fill that out.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question. We're going to change our logo for the Community Days and Sugar Beet Festival.
mhm.
Are we gonna, how is that process gonna work?
So we have a new logo selected, and that's the one that we'll use moving forward. It's one that will be more versatile. We could use it for multiple years and change the color scheme on it. It's more progressive, more inviting than the one we've had in the past.
When will we see it?
It should be coming out this week. We're gonna start some marketing stuff.
Oh, cool. Very good. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mrs. Torres?
What kind of volunteer stuff are you having the Bright Futures kids do? My daughter just had to do some of that stuff. She didn't do it through Mead, but I'm just curious what kind of opportunities we're able to give those kids.
So right now, we're actually working with Public Works. We have a project to get the grass area around the wood carving
Mhm.
cleaned out, and then we're gonna lay down some landscape fabric and mulch, but what's the, no, the edging. We're gonna put edging down.
Okay.
Around it to hold
Uh-huh.
everything in. So that's a project. And then I had some kids come in and put together first aid kits for the equipment bags that go out to the coaches, inventoried all of our equipment, cleaned out the storage sheds. I had actually 2 girls come, and they pulled all of the weeds by hand off of the softball fields over at the elementary school, which that was a huge task, and that was right in the window when it was 90-degree plus weather. They also cleaned off wood chips from the fields and pine cones from the parking lot over there. We're looking to, now that we know a little bit more about when the time frame is for when they have to have their hours turned in. We're actually looking to set up projects that are a little bit bigger. We have some flower beds in some neighborhoods that aren't necessarily flower beds that that they're planting flowers in, but there are plants that they need to be weeded and that we need to re-wood chip and we need to do stuff like that with them. So it turns into some supplemental support for public works as well.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of is we need to start thinking of this for the future, because more and more kids, I think, are going to be coming to us and asking for, what do you have that we
Right,
can do?
and the hardest part is
So.
they all come at the last minute.
Yes.
They come
Yes.
the week
Oh,
before
yeah.
it's due, and that's typically the hardest time to come up with projects for
Right.
15 kids.
So we need to start
to do.
thinking about
So-
it ahead of time, yeah.
I've been working with Erica and Bo to come up with a plan on different items that they could do. Winter will be a little tougher, just because there's less stuff outside that they can do, but we'll find something.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
That's great, great news. Next item on the agenda is Town Engineer, Public Works Director, Mrs. Rasmussen.
Thank you. You have my report. I just have a couple highlights I'd like to point out. We did hire a new operations manager. He started 2 weeks ago. His name's Bo Hurtado, and he comes to us from the city of Dacono. He was the operations manager there. So he's really been able to hit the ground running, and he's doing a great job just getting adjusted and learning his way around and all the names and faces. So I'm really excited to have him here. Been a tremendous help even in just 2 weeks. The other item I want to point out is the Lake Thomas Lagoon lining improvement project is nearly complete. The liner has been installed. We're actually pumping wastewater from the Lake Ridge condos into the pond at this point. And so there's just kind of some minor landscaping and fence repair going on out there right now. So that's nearly completed. And with that, I will answer any other questions you might have.
Do you have any questions for Mrs. Rasmussen?
Well, I was curious about something. So I remember a little while back, you guys were asked to look into air quality monitoring, and I remember you came back and you had some information that you had gathered from some other municipalities, but then I never heard anything more about it. Are we not looking to do that? Was it too expensive? I just remember you saying, here's kind of some of the information that we got from other places that are doing it, but then I don't remember what was the result?
So,
what are we doing with that?
So I did put on our webpage a lot of the resources so that if anyone wanted to take a look at what some of the air quality monitoring stations are, that's EPHE monitors, where those are and what those results are. I think the way I left it last time was if the board wanted us to pursue more detailed information gathering as far as setting up a monitoring station here, that I just needed your direction to do that. So I think that's where I left it.
Yes, and we did, by the way, find that costs were very, very significant.
Okay.
Erica and I actually attended a conference and talked to some different people, like from Longmont. I mean, the cost of doing it, we could easily be getting into the $500,000 range really fast. It's incredibly expensive. I was shocked because I thought, typical monitoring of things doesn't seem that expensive. There's a lot of data available through COGA and the gas associations, but we're happy to pursue it as part of the budget process, but I can tell you it's a big ticket item. So, it was staggering.
Wow, okay. So what are like some of the nearest air monitoring stations to where we are? Like, are there other ones that we can get data from to look at and kind of?
There are, and I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but I can certainly point you to where those are located on our website so we can tell you where they are relative to this. But essentially, the results from those show that a lot of the air quality issues are related to traffic congestion, which we have I-25 running right through our community, and of course agriculture, just particulates in the air, in addition to oil and gas. So all of those things are prevalent here. To really drill down into something more specific than that takes a much more detailed study, like what Helen was referring to.
questions for Mrs. Rasmussen? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Mrs.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees, and I apologize for the feedback that we're getting today. I added this booster here for the microphones to try to get our sound better on our video that's going up online. Apparently it's giving us some feedback, so I apologize for that. I can't really test that without us all on the sorry. We'll try to fix that for the next meeting. The other thing that I just wanted to discuss a little bit is I have a temporary person working with me this summer scanning in a bunch of our old records. Again, not a high glamour piece of work that we're doing here, but about a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, the board authorized the purchase of Laserfish, which is an archival software, and it's been sitting there for a year and a half. So I'm happy to say that with this new part-time employee, I've gotten scanned in board packets back to 2004, and the Laserfish technology allows me to make it all text recognizable, which is fantastic. And then all of those boxes full of paper that we have sitting here can go to an off-site storage for archival, since we have the digital records available. So I'm excited to be working on that, even though it's pretty nerdy. But happy to answer any questions you may have about my report.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Next is Town Manager, Mrs. Mickelbrink.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You have my report. I do have some updates. First of all, I'd like to say yesterday I was sitting in my house when it was hailing outside, and the news came on, and I saw the weather, and they featured Mead. They said a town, they actually said west of Longmont, but it was kind of neat just to have them mention that and talk about our town. So I kind of was tickled about that as I watched the hail pummeling my plants in my garden. A couple other things, the 24-hour fitness, I don't know if you guys have been watching, but we actually had to put a stop work order on that building because they got a little ahead of themselves and needed some state permits. So they came in today, they're good to go. The dumpsters will be filled again. So that project's moving forward full steam. Something Janet didn't mention is that she had pickleball lines painted on the tennis courts. So we can now have pickleball tournaments over there, and I'm hoping that she's going to have a little in-service for all of us to learn how to play. I know I'm an avid tennis player, racquetball player, right, Brian? Ping pong, and now I'm going to add pickleball to it. So that's exciting. Those are nice. It was really well done. Also, thank you to the board for pushing back when I had brought in to buy a pool vehicle for the town. Working with Chief Cousineau, we actually identified the one vehicle that didn't work as a police vehicle because it couldn't fit lights on it. So it was the wrong vehicle to use. We repurposed that as a town pool vehicle. So we now have that out in the parking lot. Somebody's already used it, although there was a wasp in it. That was not on purpose. But so we actually have an older vehicle that has a lot of service life left in it, and that'll serve as our pool vehicle. And it was displaced because, as you know, we're buying 2 new police vehicles. So that was just one of those organic things that worked. So we're really excited to have that. Hopefully we can reduce some of those mileage payments that we're paying to employees as they start using that. And then finally, a couple more things. We'll be bringing a purchasing policy to you probably next time. It might be the end of the month, depending on. This is something Denise has been working on for at least a year. We've really been looking at other municipalities. We work with Marcus to make sure it's all legal. So we'll be bringing that back and be doing a presentation on that. And then today I had a phone conference with KRW, who's doing our police search. They tiered the 27 candidates, so we have 9 top-tier candidates that they're now going to do a deep dive into. I'm really, really happy with the depth and quality of the candidates that we've gotten. So as we move along, Chief Cousineau is going to work with me and the team, and once, I think they said by August 9th, we'll be having the it drilled down to 4 to 6 candidates. Then we need to get them lined up, and there will be a community panel. We haven't talked exactly how that's going to flesh out, but I'm real happy with that. Also on the staffing level, we promoted Jamie, who was at the front desk. She's now going to be our accounting and HR clerk, working with Denise upstairs. That's really the only opening we have right now at the town, absent the police that we keep looking for. We do have interviews scheduled for that position. So we're heading into the fall really in pretty good stead here. Great staff team. I really want to give shout out to everybody. They've been really working diligently. Our open house the other night was really well done. The materials are coming together. We are going to be putting a flyer into the utility bill that again talks about this proposed sales tax. And with that, I'll stop talking. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Mickelthorne? Next on the agenda is my report. I don't have a report. I have a couple ideas. We used to send the Mead Messenger out monthly, and then we went to quarterly. And I think Dave and I were talking to a couple couples last week during the tax presentation that would like to have an email on updates, because they don't use the Mead Messenger. Only comes out quarterly, and then the website. And so I was wondering if there was something we could do, and I know we had talked about it in previous meetings, like 6 months ago, where maybe they could sign up, and then we could do maybe every other week, or maybe once a month, send out like a mini Mead Messenger. Not so much, but what's happening in town, like that we've hired, some policemen and, that kind of items. Or like the stuff we put on Facebook, on anything we put in the newspapers as far as volleyball and basketball and any of those promotional things, anything that's positive. I just think it would, if we could do something like that on a monthly basis. I don't know if it would be hard to manage, and I'm just asking.
So if I could,
Yes.
I heard 2 things. One would be an email sign up for alerts. So in that situation, like every time we add something to our website, which is virtually every day, there would be an alert that would send an email out and send you to the link. That's pretty easy, I think. I think we can work with our IT people and the website. The other item, and I do see other towns do this, where they actually send out almost a bulletin weekly that's almost like a page summary. I can't commit to that. I need to talk to staff. I mean, as you know, I did eliminate the PIO position to fund a police officer. And so we are limited in that. We do have a contract person, but I don't believe that's in the scope of her contract. But let me get creative with staff and see what we can do, because I agree with you. I think we need to be pushing out more news about the town. I think I've learned over the last couple months that if you let other people tell your story, they don't tell it the way you would like to tell it. So if you get out in front of it, and we've been doing that more, we've been issuing press releases with more positive news. I am committed to it, and let me see in talking to staff how we can do that. Again, it's a resource thing, but it's a very high priority. So I will be back with you on that.
Okay, cool. That's great.
On both items.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because the information that's getting in any of the local newspapers isn't accurate and isn't positive, and we need to find other ways to get our story out. Our story's always going to be better and more accurate. So that would be awesome. If we could do something like that, that would be great. Next item on the agenda. Are there any trustees that have comments, suggestions, thoughts? Okay, next item is, would we go into adjournment and then go into our executive session?
No, the state law requires that the executive session be held at a regular special meeting. So you move to convene into executive session, and then you come out of executive session, and then you adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
So that's why the executive session is shown on the agenda ahead of the adjournment.
Okay, so then we need a motion to go into executive session?
That's correct. It would, the motion would be to go into executive session, and then somebody would need to read both of those purposes for the executive session. That would be the complete motion. I move to go into executive session and then read A and B.
Okay.
Would be the proper motion.
And does someone have a copy of?
Right.
Okay, you're gonna go.
Okay, sure. I will move to go to executive session pursuant to CRS 246402-4F to discuss a personnel matter for which the employee has consented specifically to conduct the town manager review, and pursuant to CRS 246402-4A and 4024E to discuss the potential purchase or acquisition of property located on Main Street in the town of Mead, and to develop strategies for negotiating and instruct negotiators regarding the subject property.
Can I have a second?
A second.
Motion and a second.
And then we need a vote on the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go into executive session.
Can we have a break for?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break, or 10 minutes, and we can